Regina with Regina T Gaming, and welcome to another game review. So today we're taking a look at Monster Hunter World's Iceborne, which launched Friday. So far, the gameplay itself has been absolutely beautiful and stunning, as is expected to be with a Capcom game. Now, I hold Capcom a little bit higher in regards when it comes to game making, since they tend to do a really good job, and they won't launch if a game's not truly finished. Now, that being said, there's a couple of minor issues. So let's get right into the review and take a look at Monster Hunter World's Iceborne. With this new expansion from Capcom, the Monster Hunter World has actually expanded into a whole new zone. Yana, there's new monsters and critters to catch and different things to mess with, and the entire gameplay system has actually advanced. So there's a couple of new mechanics that I really liked. One of which being because I play with a bow, and unfortunately playing with a bow on Monster Hunter tends to get a little bit difficult. So mounting, although can be done, has to be timed almost just right, or else it doesn't quite work and you end up getting stepped on, which happened a lot. So they added the new slinger type system to allow just about anybody to mount, from using a dual wield all the way to using a bow. So being able to do that was actually kind of fun, where before I wouldn't be able to mount and I wouldn't be able to necessarily help soften things. I was just on the ground shooting at it. Now I can actually get up there, soften the creature. I can't necessarily knock it, but making that ability more available makes it so that those of us who don't necessarily like the insect glaive or some of the other ones where you're flying in the air and you're bouncing around and your camera's all over, it allows all of us to kind of participate a little bit more in depth with the game. Now, the new monsters themselves are beautifully done. I can't give Capcom enough credit when it comes to their actual game mechanics and their design. Their design team is phenomenal. Iceborne has a lot of detail, is super clean, very crisp, especially because it's in snow. So with it being in snow, there's a lot of white. You wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of colors, and most games get really washed out depending on how much your gamma is set. Now, of course, I tweak mine depending on what I'm doing, but I haven't had to mess with this at all. Now, there are a few very minor things that I kind of hope that they're in the process of upgrading or changing as time goes on. Now, issue, of course, being load screens. It's been a pretty constant issue since the beginning of this game, when it first launched last year, but it's kind of continued and it hasn't improved. Now, load screens tend to happen in between missions, going to and from a primary area. There's a minor load screen going into the gathering hub, but overall, the actual game itself is completely playable, just the load screens are a little long. So one big critique for you, Capcom, is to shorten those load screens for us just a little bit. Just a little bit would actually make the game flow work a little bit better in my opinion, but again, my opinion. Now, the other issue that I've run into several times now is game save issues. Now, those can be aggravating. I've managed to complete a quest, I set up a whole new armor set, saved it, set up my item inventory so that when I actually go into the map, into the actual map, it would be there, and unfortunately, I beat the game, I hit save, everything seems fine. I come back into the game, nothing's there, and now I have to redo things. So that can be extremely frustrating. One thing we tried last night is to save a couple of times and then exit the title screen without actually shutting the PlayStation down while you're still in game. That seems to have fixed some of it, but just as a note to Capcom, that probably needs to be looked at. The other thing that, of course, I've always been a hard-nosed when it comes to my DLC content. I do buy them, I'm guilty of it just like the rest of us, but unfortunately, paying the price of a new game for an expansion that's not an entirely new game gets really frustrating and it's getting really old. And it's not just Capcom who does it, but Bethesda and EA and all of these companies all do this with their games. Now, Destiny from Bungie also has the same issue where their pricing for DLC content is just a smidge high. Personally, paying $40 for an expansion, whether it's Deluxe Edition or not, is just a lot of money. Especially considering most new games now are priced at $40. And even worse, the average game, just a normal title, is $60 brand new. And of course, naturally, we all know those don't have all of the content they say that they do. So that tends to be an issue. Just looking at them. So, one note for that, of course, is if you've already purchased the game, beware. Pay attention before you hit that buy button, because Capcom did split it up. So they have the game with the full original Monster Hunter title, as well as the add-on. So the add-on itself is a little bit cheaper when it comes to all three versions that they put out this time, the Deluxe Edition, and all of those additions that every game always comes up with. Those actual pieces and those components for the game when it comes to pricing are very different. So the full game plus the edition, it's going to be more expensive, so just pay attention when you're clicking on that price. But if you don't own the original game, you do have to pay the insane prices. And I'm sorry about that. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. They're going to get their money. Capcom, of course, I give them a little more leeway when it comes to their pricing models and kind of how they do things when it comes to their actual games. More so because, for one, I love their games. But because the company itself has a really great reputation. Right when Monster Hunter World launched, Fallout 76 and Anthem were both the up-and-comers. Everybody was excited. So, of course, naturally after Fallout fell on its face, and it fell out of the actual existence when it comes to gamers, Anthem was going to be next. Anthem also fell short, but Monster Hunter has stayed pretty true to itself. Capcom won't generally release without the game actually being done. Now, of course, bugs and glitches and things like that are natural. Those are to be expected. But if you watched Anthem, there was issues with the story, with the load screens, with the actual drops, with you name it, Anthem had it. Same with Fallout. Unfortunately, those particular games fell on their faces. Now, Monster Hunter World hasn't done that. There were some matchmaking issues, but overall, it's gotten way better. Now, some of the main positives for the game tend to be, of course, the graphics are just absolutely stunning. The new section for Seliana is just beautiful. Even though it is snowy and could get easily washed out when an artist is doing that, they managed to actually bring it to life a lot of new creatures and critters for hunting, trapping, catching with the nets, you name it, you can do it. Now, my favorite, of course, is to catch the cute little critters and put them in my room. So you have a whole new room in Seliana that you can add stuff to, which is amazing, and I'm so glad that they did that. Because it actually allowed me to add some critters that I normally don't get to see because I didn't have enough room in the first one. Now, upgrades and different things that you can do with your room, it makes the game a little bit more fun to play when you're in your downtime. Now, the monsters themselves in Iceborne are absolutely insane. So I'm going to show most of the end gameplay, the final monster, anything like that in this review. Unfortunately, that'll come later, probably in a month or two, after everybody's gotten a chance to actually see it and play through it. Because it's really not fair for me to give that spoiler. That particular monster is stunning. And the storyline that they continued from the first section of Monster Hunter World is just phenomenal. I couldn't be more happy with Capcom and how they actually put this game together. The new zone, the new monsters, they're a little difficult to be honest. There was one in particular that I couldn't do myself. Of course I use a bow, so that tends to be the problem. But Maurice, of course, was more than happy to jump on in, and we got it completed in a pretty decent amount of time. Now, because of the new monsters, just like any of the expansions that they've done, these new monsters are tougher to find. With Iceborne, though, it did introduce master ranks. I'm not a huge fan of master ranks. Unfortunately, in most games, they tend to cause issues. It becomes very confusing, and it can be very frustrating. Now, I completely am okay, though, with how Capcom has done it because it's not a PvP style game. So unlike ESO or even Bungie's Destiny 2, those games, when you have master ranks and different things put in there, it gets a little bit hectic. And it can be super crazy to figure out how to build it, how to fix it, and all of that. Now they did add a better component with layered armor, which is kind of cool to see, and I'm really excited to kind of tweak with it and play with it. I kind of liked doing layered armor before this anyways, because cute little outfits, who doesn't like those? But it doesn't actually have any true purpose. It doesn't add an armor value or anything like that. It's just a decoration over top. So the direwolf one that you initially get in the game, I actually kind of like it. It reminds me of the Christmas one from a couple years ago, or from last year, and honestly, Kibbles, my little palico, tends to like that one a lot, so he seems to like this one too. The actual story flow, we have named her Squirrel, but I know that's not her true name. So Squirrel's entire backstory, there's been hints and bits and pieces here and there throughout the game as to what she's doing and why she's there and her decision making. But having it go a little bit more in depth with her, of course she does disappear for about a mission or two, which is kind of sad because I prefer Squirrel over the replacement that they have in the game, but it made sense. The entire story so far goes really, really well together and is very fun to play. The new monsters, of course, I personally have fun little nicknames for them. The new ones, again, are difficult. So you're going to want to pay attention to your actual armor and how you're stacking things and kind of playing it by ear. Because although you have seen, the Puke before and Poof, well, we call him Poof. You've seen Poof before and some of the others, they're not the same. Every last one of them has this different component and these little tweaks that make them super unique, which is really cool to see because they are evolving as the story tells you while you're in game, and with that evolution, of course, comes change. Those changes are insane. I'm super excited to see the rest of the critters that they've changed and added. I want to actually kind of play with them some more, and we give them all special nicknames because we can't pronounce half of them. But because we have nicknames, you can of course check out our next video, which will probably be next week, with all of the breakdowns of our funny little names for the Monster Hunter creatures. So with everything all together, even with the game save issues, the long loading screens, and the pricing being on the high side, in my opinion, the game itself hits a 9 out of 10. So I, of course, don't generally give 9s to most games. I very rarely will give a 10. This game almost hit a 10. If those two things, game save or the load screen slows, but those are things that I've experienced while playing, and unfortunately it does kind of drop my score just a little bit. Now a 10 out of 10 if those games, regardless of price, if those two issues were actually fully resolved, yeah, the game would be a complete 10 out of 10, which is phenomenal. I really enjoy it, and I hope that you do too. So if you're contemplating getting Iceborne and just aren't sure because of all of the game issues we've been having lately, from loot boxes to annoying mechanics to stories being broken, Monster Hunter World Iceborne is definitely one that you can place your money with. Capcom will always do a good job, and I know that they are receptive to their customers, those of us who buy it when we have issues. They try their hardest to fix it. Thanks for watching another episode of Regina T Gaming, a game review. I'm Regina T, and don't forget to catch me live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Twitch, link down below. If you have questions, comments, concerns, or would like to see me review any other games, put them in the comments below, or you can always join chat on Twitch and let me know. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and ring that bell. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.